Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to HemingwayLand.com, your source for quality, affordable land in the state of Colorado. Continuing with our string of recent acquisitions in the Rocky Mountain State, we've got another great property sitting just outside of Lathrop State Park. This one's got no HOA, no annual dues, very light covenants and restrictions if they're being enforced at all. Additionally, of course, it's right by the lakes. The property is also pre-staked. That means it's got boundary markers along it. And it's roughly about a half mile from nearest power. So there's a lot of good features about this property, everything I just mentioned, plus much more in today's video. Let's get to it, guys. This is reference number HFCO-2771, located in Huerfano County in the south central portion of the state. More specifically, in my new favorite subdivision, to say out loud, Rio Cucharas. This is a scooch more than 4 acres in the Rio Cucharas subdivision. And as you saw up top, these 4 acres are priced at $16,000. Let's bring it up on a map, show you guys exactly where it is. As with all of our listings, GPS coordinates down here, click any one of them, and voila, a map shall appear. So we got a lot of green on this map, which makes it hard to make out any detail at all, but take my word for it, we are staring right now at the square-shaped state of Colorado right here. Subject property sits down here in the southern portion, south central portion of the state in Huerfano County. If you know nothing about Colorado geography, you at least know Denver. Denver, of course, is right up here. If we right-click and measure from the pin to Denver, roughly about 140 miles as the crow flies, you can anticipate that's about a 2.5-hour drive up to Denver, should you want to drive back and forth for ball games, something like that. Of course, it should be an easy drive. You've got the I-25 going right along here, north-south through the state. It will take you right from the subject property up to Denver. We should anticipate 75, 80 miles an hour, 2.5-hour drive, something like that. Along the way, of course, you'll pass through Colorado Springs, which is about an hour and a half north of the subject property, and the town of Pueblo, which is about an hour north of the subject property. Of course, there are many things to do and see and experience in the state of Colorado, not just the town of Denver, but in between point A and point B, there are a number of things that you can take advantage of along the way. Whatever the case, if we zoom in here, guys, you will see that the subject property sits just west of the town of Walsenburg. That is your nearest town, roughly about 5 minutes from the subject property. Walsenburg is a town of roughly about 7,000 people. We've got photos in the photo gallery, guys, that'll give you an excellent sense of what this charming, rustic, bucolic, whatever adjective you want to assign to its small town in southern Colorado looks like. I'm pausing on the local lumber store because I want to make it clear, guys, most groceries and supplies, most amenities are going to be nearby here. Local Walmart, closest Walmart's about 40 minutes south in Trinidad. Whatever the case, if you do buy today's property with the intention of building on it, my guess is you will be spending a lot of time at the Walsenburg Lumber Company. Anyway, additionally, we've got some other photos from the town just to give you a sense of what this area is like and all that is available to you out here. This, of course, is a small town, but they got grocery stores, they got a hospital out there, so on and so forth. Whatever the case, guys, let's go back to the map for a second to show you what else the property sits by. Look at this. 2 bodies of water, 2 lakes out here. This is Lathrop State Park. You've got the Horseshoe and the Martin Lake right here. And, of course, the subject property sits just north of those. Should be noted, guys, if we go back to the gallery, we boosted some maps from the Lathrop website. It gives you a good sense of exactly what's available to you out here at these lakes. In the grid down here, you can see you've got hunting areas out here, bird watching areas, picnic areas. You've got boat ramps. You've got, RV camping available to you out here. It's a rather large state park, and of course, a lot of great activities you could partake in, whether you own a boat or you do not. If you do, however, you will be glad to know that amongst the many things you could do out there on the lake, fishing, boating, jet skiing, the lake, by the way, is, hey, I know, we've got photos from the lake. How about I go over those? The lake, of course, is known to have a number of species of fish out there. Let me get on my fish list so I can sound like I know what I'm talking about. Rainbow trout, walleye, catfish, bluegill, tiger muskies, and the regrettably spelled but pronounced crappie, the crappie fish. Learned that one on the YouTube channel recently, guys. Anyway, but as you can see, it's a really pretty area out here. And, of course, off in the distance, you've got the nearby Sangre De Cristos and Spanish Peaks that surround this area and, of course, are visible from the subject property and really give you some nice surrounding views of the local area. When our photographer was out there, of course, it was cold, it was winter, there was nobody on the lake, but as you can see, it's a pretty big lake, and there's a lot to take advantage of and do out here. Anyway, with that said, guys, let's go back to the map And we will zoom in now on the subject property. So the subject property sits just north here in the Rio Cucharas subdivision. There's actually a number of subs out here. We've got a property in Greenhorn Village, which is pretty close to this one. And Rio Cucharas is over here. Not entirely certain where one begins and ends. It seems like they share a lot of the same territory. There's some overlap. Whatever the case, the subject property sits here off of Deora Boulevard. And map view, we cannot get a sense of the plat. So I will direct your attention, guys. Let's go back to the photos here for a second. I will direct your attention down here to the gallery. We have, first of all, the outline of the property. You've got some oddly shaped properties in the subdivision. Whatever the case, the road axis is right here off of the northern portion of the property. It has kind of like a driveway shape to it until you get really into the heart of the land right here. And just to back this up and make it clear that we didn't make up that shape, here's the plat map. This is what the plat map looks like out there, guys. So that is the shape of the property, lot 261. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, back to the map. So anyway, subject property located here off of Deora Boulevard. First thing I want to point out to you guys, let's talk about power, because I'm going to get into it in the photos in a second. So the roads are really well maintained. There's no problem out there. But when it comes to power, there's no power at the lot line. Now, this is the nearest structure over here that has power lines added. If we zoom in on it, you can see power line here, power line here, power line here, etc. This is roughly about a half mile from the subject property. Again, if you want to test me on that, you can right-click, measure distance, click over here. You'll see roughly about 1,900 feet, so about 2,000. So a little bit less than a half mile from the subject property. Point being, you may have to get power extended out here if you do not plan to go the solar route. On the Google Maps, we do not see it, but there is a structure that exists pretty close to the property out here. I, however, do not see any power lines on that property. Anyway, let's go back to the photo gallery and just kind of peruse this for a second. So, ba-boom, there we go. All right, so this is the first photo of the property. As you can see, very well-maintained roads. You're going to be able to approach this in any vehicle type. You don't need a large off-road capable vehicle, truck, something like that to get out to the property. You can take your whatever, Prius out there, I guess. Anyway, the first thing that jumps out at us, of course, is that we have some property stakes and property boundary markers on the land. All these, from what I have seen of the subdivisions that we've been buying in, there's a lot of property boundary markers that exist out here. These aren't accidentally staked. These are things that were put out here, intentionally. So it's going to be very easy to get a sense of where exactly the property begins and ends. That, of course, will save you some money on getting the property surveyed. You won't have to dump $1,000 or $2,000 on that. Additionally, guys, you will notice we have some kind of construct here at the entrance of the property. Our photographer took roughly about 1 million photos of it, but brick columns marking the property driveway. So I'll show you the outlines of the drone photos in just a second, but why did I do that? Hang on a second, guys. But as I noted earlier, there's kind of like a small driveway that leads in here on the property. These pretty much pinpoint the ends of that driveway. In fact, actually, let me jump ahead in the gallery and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Ba-boom. Yes, down here, if you look at this photo, you can see here's one of the columns, here's one of the other columns, but they give you a pretty good sense of where exactly, I keep calling it a driveway, but you get the panhandle of the property. Anyway, we'll go back to that in just a second. Back here to more photos of the land. Columns marking the property driveway, and then as we go through this, you will see these are the nearest power lines, the ones that I was pointing out, roughly about a half mile east from the subject property. There's quite a few of them out here. The subdivision, this Rio Cucharas, as well as the other ones we've been buying in. Power in this area is serviced by the San Isabel Electric company, located in nearby Walsenburg. I don't see roads in this area that have, utility easements, just, one power line after another, 20 poles along the same road. I see them kind of piecemeal throughout the subdivision. It's interesting. I haven't seen that before in New Mexico. So it doesn't seem to follow logical patterns. It's just wherever there's a home site, somehow they get power out there. So it's promising, but as always, we encourage you to talk to the local utility company if that is your intention. How hard is it to get power extended out to my property, going roughly 2,000 feet? What does that cost? So on and so forth. By the way, as I go through the photos here, guys, I do want to point out you're seeing some of the other property boundary markers that exist out there on the land. Of course, the property itself is a nice, flat, buildable piece of land, easy to park an RV on, easy to start construction on, etc. Here is another one of those aforementioned property boundary markers. And in this photo, here's another one. For the record, guys, the shovels were on the property when our photographer showed up. So maybe they'll still be there when you buy the property. If so, free shovels, guys. $16,000 for the land. We throw in some free shovels. but I suspect this is one of the neighbor's shovels. Who knows? Anyway, but yes, another property boundary marker that exists out here. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, let me just say this, guys. Up in the property specific notes at the top of the page, we've got a link to the covenants and restrictions that supposedly govern this area. So let's talk about this while I go through photos of the land. Rio Cucharas is the name of the subdivision. There are 3 units in Rio Cucharas. This property is in Unit 1. Unit 1 does not have an HOA. It does not have annual dues. And from everything that I have seen and read and discussed with local realtors, the covenants that were created with the subdivision initially do not any longer exist. They don't exist, they're not enforced, blah, blah, blah. And I think you'll get some evidence of that as you look at some of the drone photos and you see what's out there. Point being, of the 3 units that exist in this subdivision, Unit 3 has an HOA. It has those fees. It has those covenants and restrictions. This, however, is not part of Unit 3. It's Unit 1. So I want to delineate that very clearly, that you have 2 things going on out here. So if you're buying this property, you're not subject to those fees. You're not subject to the HOA, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're doing some research online and you come upon something that says that, it's probably talking about Unit 3. So just make sure, to read up on that. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. Also the covenants and restrictions that were created with the land. Let me actually just go to those for a second. So we have them linked in the table, and I'll point them out to you in a bit. These are the covenants. These are restrictions. They were created initially. These are all pretty logical, common sense, good neighbor restrictions. You'll notice down here under paragraph O, it says that essentially these are going to exist for 20 years, and then the residents, the people who own land, own homes in the area, can vote on them subsequently to renew them or not renew them. Generally speaking, when they're not enforced, that's what happened. Somewhere along the way in the 80s or the 90s, the people who own land out there didn't vote to reinforce them, and that's why they don't exist anymore. So, point being, if you review this, you can see, just the little bit that was dictated at the outset, and how none of that really still applies. Anyway, guys, back to the photo gallery. Again, more property boundary markers, etc. Let me jump ahead. I don't know how there's this many photos. Hang on, guys. Let me jump ahead to the drone shots. So this is what the area looks like out here. I'm noticing 2 nearby properties with just sort of sheds on them. They have fencing around them and they have sheds. I have no explanation for why that is. Whatever the case, we have the outline of the property. Additionally, off in the distance, you will also see out here some RVs in some of these photos, some people living out of RVs. You'll notice some travel trailers, things like that, some mobile homes, but I'm also seeing RVs in these photos. Now, the official rule per the land use guidelines in Huerfano County is that you can RV on property for 30 days at a time. Here's another one out here. After those 30 days, you need a building permit. My suspicion is that's probably actually being enforced out here. The little bit that I've seen of zoning in this area, it seems like the region is well maintained, it's well kept. So, what happens on day 31? Probably not much, but by day 60, probably somebody's telling you to move. Anyway, this is just another demonstration of how far away that nearby home site is with the power that is at that lot line. Again, roughly about a half mile from the subject property. And as we go through these, you will see this is the other home site that I was discussing. It doesn't appear on Google Maps, but it is out there. We have photos of this in the gallery that I skipped over, but if you really scrutinize it, you're going to see it's a pretty nice looking home site, but I don't see any utilities. I don't see anything sticking out of the ground. Maybe there's underground utilities out in that way. Our photographer did not find any, but the point is that somebody is living out there and they are getting power to the structure. So anyway, guys, we will let you explore these on your own time. As always, we've got the drone shots down here, and then we're going to have a drone video at the bottom of the gallery, which you can also review. By the way, this is the photo of the home site that exists over there. They've got fencing. They've got some pretty nice structures. You assume they're getting power somehow, but we don't see solar panels, and my guy couldn't find underground utilities, so, who knows. But anyway, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, guys, so up here at the top of the page, under the property specific notes, I just want to point out to you a couple links that we provide for your benefit, for your ability to research. The first one of those covenants and restrictions that I was mentioning, they're linked here. This little paragraph discusses basically what I talked about how this unit is not subject to these rules, but Unit 3 is. If you click that link, it'll bring up that document that I showed you earlier, and you can kind of review those and see what was at least stated at the outset with this subdivision. Additionally, guys, we got some other links up here, just some links to the Huerfano County land use guidelines to talk more about the RV thing. Obviously, a lot of our customers care about RVing on properties. If you click this link, it'll bring up this document, It's just an excerpt, but it'll show you exactly what Huerfano County puts out there as the official rules: 30 days, 30 plus with a building permit, et cetera, et cetera. Additionally, back here we also have links to the nearby Lathrop State Park, Trinidad Lake State Park, Lake Pueblo State Park, all of the great bodies of water that are relatively close to the subject property, other things you could take advantage of. Now, one quick thing I want to discuss. So, water table depth in this region. There are wells drilled very close to this property. The top 5 wells that I have seen are between 30 feet depth and 448 feet depth. I've seen a couple, the average is about 300 feet. Normally, of course, I am reluctant to discuss water table depth because it's such an unreliable thing to give you guys. But Colorado has a really good state website for this, Colorado Division of Water Resources. Now, if you click on this link, it's going to bring up their website. And I'm going to kind of, hang on a second. I'm going to kind of walk you through how to do this. So this is page 1. This is the page you're going to land on. If you click on well permitting over here, and then you go to well permit map viewer, it's going to bring up a map of the state. Now, this is going to move kind of slowly, so I'm just going to pause the video. Anyway, it's going to bring up a map of the state, and then down here, of course, is Huerfano County. If you zoom in on this, of course, I probably zoomed too fast. Once you get out here, then you can find Lathrop State Park. Hang on a second. Tell you what, I'm going to pause the video one more time. Hang on. Anyway, you can find Lathrop State Park, and then you can kind of scrutinize the roads up here, look at the map, see exactly where this thing is. It's where Ferris kind of intertwines with La Deora. And then if you come back here, you can zoom in again to where those two roads kind of intersect at, roughly out here. So on this map, La Deora becomes Culebra Road over here. But the point is that this is roughly where the subject property is. Now, if you come up here and click Well Application and Final Permit, it'll bring up some green dots on the map. And if you click on those green dots, you can see it's a well that is servicing that property. And you can see what the well depth is. So this one is 448 feet. This one right here is 30. Quite the discrepancy. All right, and this one over here is, let's see, this one is 300 feet, so on and so forth. So point being, guys, I will let you explore this one on your own time, but Colorado has a really good website for this. New Mexico's is not as intuitive. It's not as informative unless you really know how to dig through it. This, however, provides some helpful insight. I mean, it gives you a sense of, exactly, you can at least kind of ballpark how far you have to drill. Of course, we always recommend talk to local well drillers, talk to vendors who do this sort of thing for a living, and they could probably give you a better sense of logistics and cost, etc. This one's 418. This one over here, a little further from the property, 450. So, I mean, it seems to me like 300, 400 feet. That's probably about the average in this area, something like that. But good information to have on hand. Anyway, guys, with all that said, we got a lot of links on the page to help you with your research. Additionally, down here, we also have one that I mentioned earlier, Isabel Electric. Again, this is the utility company that services this region. They got an office in nearby Walsenburg. Click this link. It'll bring up their website. From here, you can kind of reach out to them. You can say, hey, I'm looking to buy some land in the Rio Cucharas subdivision. You've got power, roughly about 2,000 feet away from my property boundary. Can you extend power out? What does that cost? How many power poles is that? What's that going to run me? So on and so forth. That's always a good conversation to have before you spend $16,000 on a piece of land. Okay? Anyway, guys, with all that said, if you are interested in purchasing this property, I will have you know that we closed on this through Daughter Abstract. So we did get title insurance on this property. That means we will be providing you with a warranty deed. So to begin that process, just come up here, click the Buy Now button. It's going to take you to secure checkout, where we will ask you for, I can't stress this enough, a non-refundable $500 earnest money deposit. Basically, guys, we don't want your money until you exercise a modicum of discretion and you know that this is the property for you and you're ready to pull the trigger and spend the full $16,000, okay? So once you put down the $500, we're going to ask you a couple questions: legal name for deed, tax address, so on and so forth. Agree to the terms of service, click Next, and on the very next page, you're going to enter credit or debit card information to make that $500 deposit. Now, within 24 hours, we are going to get you, and we're going to say, how do you want to close on this? You want to close through a title company? Note, we're going to recommend you close through a title company. And you say yes, we're going to write up a sale purchase agreement. We sign it, you sign it, and we're going to submit it to that title company. Again, we already closed on this with Daughter Abstract, so we will recommend closing with them. Now, if you don't know much about title companies and you're wondering what the benefit is, there's a couple benefits. Number one, you're going to get title insurance, which if you plan on building on the property, if you're going to take out any kind of loan to do that, no lender is going to lend on vacant land that does not have title insurance. So that's your first benefit. The second big one, however, is that you're not just spending $16,000 on the internet. You're going to give it to a secure third party who's going to hold on to your money and not give it to us until such a time as we have deeded the land into your name. So it's a good extra measure, extra security measure for your peace of mind. For the record, guys, if I went too fast, we got a page on our website. It's called How It Works, Buying From Us. Click that, go to this page, give it a read, specifically down here under the type of closing recommended, title and escrow. Anything over $10,000, we always recommend a title company. But this is basically the steps. It's just what I said. Put down the earnest money deposit. We draft a contract. We submit it to title. Title does the rest. And if you want to get a sense, hey, what are these guys going to ask me to sign before I give them my $500? We got a helpful link right here, guys. You click on this. It's going to take you to a generic version of one of our standard contracts. As you can see, this is it's a pretty reasonable, pretty easy document to understand. It's one page for signatures. If you need your attorney to look at it, that, of course, is fine with us. You know, guys, we do, however, ask if you're going to initiate this transaction. Number one, it's a cash transaction. There's no financing offered. So, don't put down the $500 unless you've got the $16,000 to spend. Number one. And number two, we're going to want to exercise this, pretty quickly. We have some buyers who put down $500 and, you've given us your money. We want to be responsible. We want to get something done. And all we need you to do is sign a contract. Don't wait 4 weeks to do that. Okay, guys, we're going to ask you to get it done in about 96 hours because we can't do anything, including hire the title company, until you have done that. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so another great acquisition out there in Huerfano County. This is a really pretty country. Of course, explore the photo galleries, guys. We got more of those nearby mountains, the Spanish peaks out there, really gorgeous, and they surround the property. They're going to provide you nice views, etc. And of course, the property is like really close to the lakes. It's really close to town. It's got some nice features, pre-staked. I wish power were a little bit closer. I'm sure you do too, but 2,000 feet away isn't too bad. Anyway, guys, if you have any questions, leave a comment here on the YouTube or shoot us an email, support@hemingwayland.com. As always, guys, thanks for watching. I appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next video.